Jai Hind. My name is Vaishali Deshwal, and currently I'm working as an assistant professor at Akgec, Ghaziabad. So today in this session, I will be discussing Unit 1 of Machine Learning Techniques, and the code is KAI 601. So we have already discussed the brief introduction that what is machine learning and what is the difference between AI, machine learning and deep learning, and types of machine learning: supervised, unsupervised, reinforcement learning, and further their subparts. So in today's session, we will be discussing history of machine learning and introduction of several machine learning approaches. So let's start. So this is the timeline of machine learning, and we are not going to discuss history in detail. So we will only see some key points. So let's start from 1940. So it was in 1834 when Charles, the father of computer, conceived a device that could be programmed with punch card. So we will see in this timeline, we will see some major informations, or you can say some key points. In 1936, Alan Turing gave a theory that how the machine can determine and execute a set of instructions. And in this timeline, you need to remember the main key points. So in 1940 and 1943, this is the era of stored program computers. So in 1940, the first manually operated computer, the name is ENIAC, it was invented, and it was the first electronic general purpose computer. In 1943, a human neural network was modeled with a electrical circuit. In 1950, Alan Turing published a seminal paper. So in this paper, the name was Computer, Machinery and Intelligence, and it was on the topic of AI, artificial intelligence. So in this paper, he asked, can machine think? So this is the major question asked by Alan Turing in 1950 in a seminal paper named Computer, Machinery and Intelligence. And then it all started, machine learning in games. So in 1952, Arthur, who was the first person who created a program that helped IBM computer to play checkers game. So as we know that reinforcement learning played a very important role in gaming applications, and majorly AI plays a very important role in gaming applications, and a lot of work has been done in this particular thing. So in 1959, the term machine learning was first coined by Arthur Samuel. And when we talk about AI winters, so it means that there was some shortage of funding towards the AI research. So the duration of 1947 to 1980, it was the tough time for AI and ML researchers, and thus the duration refers to AI winter. Then in 1959, in 1985, so in 1985 we talk about this NetTalk. So NetTalk is a neural network which was invented by Terry and Charles in 1985. So you need to remember the major inventions in this timeline. So in 1997, IBM Deep Blue intelligence system was discovered, and it won the chess game against the cherry expert Gary. Then in 2006, Jeffrey Hinton and his group presented the idea of profound, getting the hang of utilizing profound conviction organizations. So in 2007, participants, they were tasked with increasing the accuracy of Netflix recommendations algorithm. Then in 2006, some of the computers, they can even distinguish between the identical twins. So that was the major invention in 2006, and this particular institute, National Institute of Standard and Technology, it assessed the popular face recognition algorithm in 2006. Moving on, in 2012, Google X Lab unsupervised neural network was there and was trained to detect cats in YouTube videos with 74.8% accuracy. And then there is a other deep convolution neural network named AlexNet. So it wins the ImageNet large scale visual recognition challenge. So you need to remember the names. The For example, AlexNet is there. Then in 2012, Google X was there, and it was trained. These neural networks, they were trained to detect the cats or some images in YouTube, and the accuracy was 74.8%. Again, in 2016, if we see, then there is one of the artificial intelligence system named LipNet. So it recognizes the lip read phrases in video with an accuracy of 93.4%. And in 2023, OpenAI releases ChatGPT. We are all using it. So ChatGPT in ChatGPT 4 in ChatGPT, and Bing is there. So which promises better creativity, problem solving skills. And there is one more model named Bard. So it was announced by Google. It is a large language model, and it can generate the text, or you can say translate the languages, write different kind of creative content, and answer questions in a very informative way. So this is up to 2023. So when we talk about the timeline and the history of artificial intelligence, then we just need to remember the major inventions, the key points, some of the researchers named that what invented by who. So all these things. Then this is the next topic, the introduction to machine learning approaches. So in first unit of machine learning, we will discuss that what is artificial neural networks, what is genetic algorithm, then what is reinforcement learning, what is the clustering, and many more. So there are many approaches, and we are going to see those machine learning approaches in brief. And in further chapters, like in unit 2, 3, 4, 5, I will discuss all these approaches in detail, their algorithms, the numericals on these particular topics. So let's start with artificial neural networks. So ANN. So ANN, or you can say neural networks, they're a part, or they come under deep learning. So deep learning comes under machine learning. So ANN contains artificial neurons, which are called units. So and these units, they are arranged in a series of layers. For example, there is input layer, hidden layer, and output layer, and these all units, they are arranged, which are known as layers, and they together constitute the whole ANN in the system. Then when we talk about a layer, it can have only a dozen units or the million of units, as it depends on how the complex neural network will be required to learn the hidden patterns in the dataset. And commonly ANN has the 3 layers. First is, generally it has 3 layers. It can have more than one hidden layer, but generally it has 3 layers. First is input layer, then hidden layer, and then we have output layer. So what is the functionality of these layers? In general, we can say that the input layer receives the data from outside world, which the neural network needs to analyze or learn about. And then this data passes through one or multiple hidden layers that transform the input into data that is valuable for the output layer. And finally, there is output layer, which provides the output in the form of responses of the ANN to input data provided. Then neural networks, they are also known as perceptron, and they have been seen around 1940s. So it is only in the last several decades where they have become a major part of AI. And why they became popular in the last several decades only? This is because of a technique which is known as backpropagation, which allows a particular network to adjust their hidden layers of the neurons in situations where the outcome doesn't match what the creator is hoping for. So this is the major invention, or you can say this is the main technique, algorithm named backpropagation for the success of the neural networks. Then what is how the neural networks, they are related to the neurons in brain. So there is biological motivation for the neural networks which we study. So the study of ANN has been inspired in part by the observations that biological learning systems, they are built of every very complex web of interconnected neurons. So there are millions of neurons that are present in our brain. Similarly, in neural networks also we have the neurons which are known as units, and they are interconnected to each other. So sometimes they are fully connected, sometimes not. And when they are fully connected, then the expense and the complexity increases. Then for example, let's take an example. So the human brain is estimated to contain a densely interconnected network of approximately neurons, and each neuron is connected on an average. If we talk, then it is 10 to the power 11 to others, so it is very high. And the fastest neuron switching time is 10 to the power 4. They are known to be on the order of seconds, so but it is slow compared to computer switching speed, that is 10 to the power minus 3. Still the switching time of the neuron is quite slow in comparison to of the computer switching speed. Still, the humans, they are able to make surprising complex decisions. So this is a thing. Now, the information processing abilities of biological unit systems, they must follow from the highly parallel processes operating on representations that are distributed over many neurons. So this is one of the motivation, and the other motivation for ANN is to capture this kind of highly parallel computation based on distributed representation. Now I'll talk about that what is the basic structure of ANN. We have already discussed that there are neurons. The neurons, they are just arranged to make layers, and there are 3 layers in general. We have input layer, output layer, and hidden layer. So ANN, they are composed of multiple nodes which imitate the biological neurons of human brain. And the nodes, they can take the input data and perform simple operations on the data, and the result of these operations, it passes on to the other neurons. And then the output at each node is known as its activation or the node value, which passes to the other node. So each link is associated with weights, and ANNs, the artificial neural networks, they are capable of learning with which take place by altering the weight values. So this weight is very important, or plays a very important role in neural networks, and all the algorithms, they try to learn this weight. Then we have the general representation of neural network. First, these are the neurons which are known as nodes in ANN, and this is the layer. So the 3 layers in general. First is input layer, hidden layer, and lastly we have output layer. At input layer, we have inputs, and we are going to assign some of the weights, and then we are saying that this is the weighted sum of inputs, and it further passes to the hidden layer and output layer. And at the output layer, finally we got output after calculations, after applying activations, functions, and many more. Now initially a neuron adds a value of every neuron from the previous layer it is connected to. So as we can see in this figure, these 3 values, they can be multiplied by the weights. So we are having 3 values here, input 1, input 2, input 3, and so on. So they have their weights linked with them, and these 3 values will be multiplied by the weight, which are known as weighted sum. So the weights are the values that determine the strength between the 2 neurons, and those are the values that will be altered in the learning process. Now this is these are the operations which are performed in a neuron. So what are these? So these are the input which is represented by the variable x. So x1, x2, xn. There are n number of inputs, so we are just saying x1, x2, x2, xn. And then we have weighted attached to these particular inputs, w1, w2 to wn. And when you are multiplying x1 with w1, then you got the weighted sum. So this is the activation function, and this is a summation. You are doing summation. Here you are getting the weighted sum, and then it passes to the activation function, and then finally you are getting output. So these are the general operations which are going on in a neuron, and we will study all these operations in detail in the further units. Next topic is, or the next approach to machine learning is clustering. So in clustering, it is one of the unsupervised learning method, and thus there is no supervision which is provided to the algorithm. It deals with the unlabeled data set. Obviously, when it is the unsupervised learning method, then we are providing the unlabeled data set. So clustering is task of dividing the unlabeled data or the points into the different clusters, and that's the main point, that the similar data points, they fall in the same cluster, and then those which differs from each other. So let's take an example. If one wish to understand the preference of your customers to scale up your business, then one can do is clustering. So just cluster all those customers into say 10 groups based on their purchasing habits, and use a separate strategy for customers in each of these 10 groups. So now we are having the types of clustering in machine learning. First is hard clustering and second is soft clustering. So what is the difference between these clusterings? First is hard clustering. So in this, each input data point either fully belongs to a cluster or not. So this is a thing in hard. There's a rigid rule that if there is an input point, then it can fully belongs to a customer or not. For example, every customer is assigned to one group out of 10. Then we have soft clustering. Rather than assigning each input data point to a particular cluster, it assigns a probability or the likelihood of the data point, that what is the probability that this particular input will belong to this particular cluster or that particular cluster. Then these are the several methods in machine learning, clustering methods in machine learning. First one is the partitioning clustering, second is density, third is distribution, hierarchical, and then we have fuzzy clustering. So let's see all these methods one by one, and just the main points we'll see. So first one is partitioning clustering. Partitioning clustering is also known as a centroid based method. So as the name suggests, centroid is the keyword, and the clustering is done on the basis of the centroid. So the most common example of partitioning clustering is k-means clustering algorithm, and in this type the data set is divided into the k groups, where the k is used to define the number of predefined groups. So let's see this particular diagram. So here, as you can see, these are the centroid. This green triangle is centroid, this blue circle is a centroid, this gray rectangle is also a centroid. So in this the cluster center is created in such a way that the distance between the data point of one cluster is minimum in comparison to that of the other cluster. Next point is density based cluster. So density based cluster methods, they connect the highly dense areas into the clusters, and arbitrarily shaped distributions, they are formed as long as the dense regions, they can be connected. How? As you can see here, so this is a dense area, so we just name it as one cluster. Another dense area, we just named it as the second cluster. So this is the definition, that in this method it just connects the highly dense areas into the clusters, and thus the arbitrary shape distributions, they are formed in this. So predefined shapes or rectangle or circles, they are not there. Any shape can be formed. And the popular examples of such kind of the models are, for example, DB-scan and optics. Next is distribution model based clustering. So in this, the data is divided based on the probability of how a data set based on a particular distribution, and the grouping is done by assuming some distributions commonly known as Gaussian distribution. And for example, what type of the algorithms they fall under this type of the clustering is EM algorithm. This is very important algorithm in machine learning, expectation maximization algorithm, and that uses GMM, that is Gaussian mixture model. So we'll study this EM clustering algorithm in unit 2. Next is hierarchical clustering. Hierarchical clustering can be used as an alternative for the partition clustering, as there is no requirement of pre-specifying the number of clusters to be created. Okay, and the example is agglomerative hierarchical algorithm. So this is the hierarchical clustering, as you can see, and you can just relate this diagram with the definition. Last one is the fuzzy clustering. So fuzzy clustering is a type of soft method in which we have already discussed that what is the difference between the soft method and the soft clustering and the hard clustering. So in hard clustering we have the rigid rule, and in soft clustering the rule is not there. So the fuzzy clustering is a type of soft method in which a data object may belong to more than one group or cluster, and fuzzy C-mean algorithm is one of the example of this learning. So here the clustering algorithms are there. You can just have a look. That is the k-means, mean shift, db scan algorithm, em algorithm that we are going to discuss in second unit. And then we have agglomerative hierarchical algorithm, which falls under the hierarchical algorithm. So these are some of the applications like market segmentation. Clustering is used in image segmentation, in anomaly detection, and in analysis also, social network analysis and statistical data analysis. Then we have reinforcement learning. So in this session, this is the right time to stop here. And so we have discussed in today's session, we have discussed that what is clustering, major timelines of machine learning, or you can say the history of machine learning and clustering, what are the several types of machine learning, what are the methods, what are the applications, and ANN also. So we have discussed in ANN, like what is ANN, what is a perceptron, what are the layers, what is a neuron, what is a unit, what is activation function, what is kernel, so all these things.